Is this just fantasy? No, no, of course not. This is Conan the Barbarian, and this is the original stories published by Marvel Comics. And it's exciting to finally cover kind of where the graphic depiction of Conan began. And I know that they're book covers. That's really where it started, of course, and magazine covers. But this is when the comic form of Conan began. And we're here with Barry Windsor Smith, or at the time, just Barry Smith. And it's so small, right? That's because this is a digest edition of the first like 3 issues of the comic, which I love this format. I love, yeah, just this the recreation of the period coloring, or it's not even recreation, it's just the period coloring of it, because there are, of course, several different kinds of reprints of these stories, and especially once Dark Horse started reprinting them, they had, at the time, newfangled digital coloring, and they just don't look good. I mean, I'll show you just via comparison that, and I'm not a fan of it, and I feel like representing the comic as it was created, as the artist intended, because a lot of these artists, I'm not, I'll have to research it here, but a lot of these artists were very specific about how they wanted them to be colored because they were familiar with the process. And so the fact that people latter day are changing it, that's essentially taking an artist's work and saying, hey, we're going to redo it, we're going to repaint it without your consent. Anyway, enough of that. Let's just get into it and see what the first version of comic book Conan was really like. So yeah, I really love I love this digest format. It's adorable. Got our list of credits: Stan Lee and Roy Thomas, just singing praises of the whole endeavor. And of course, like all good fantasy, we have our map. Again, gorgeously colored. I mean, I love this style of coloring. I mean, if you've seen my comic 3-Panel Origin, you'd know, and you should, because it's awesome. But yeah, just love the detail of this map. Of course, taken from Robert E. Howard, as it says here. But yeah, beautiful. And then here we go, The Coming of Conan. That's inappropriate. Anyway, I love that this is how they were going to start it. It's like, this is epic. So let's just have this big epic splash page. And then, we have sort of a pastiche of the like Hero Prince text here that sits in front of, at this point, every single Conan comic has that as the inset. So I guess to let people know what they're reading if they've never read a Conan thing. But this is awesome. And I will note that, the early version of Conan by Barry Smith here, or soon to be Barry Windsor Smith, is a little scrawnier, a little leaner muscle than the Buscema kind of hulking figure. And while, of course, I'm the biggest fan of the Buscema run on this book, I think I don't know, it's just going to be a good looking book too. And it's and also across even these 3 stories, Barry Smith you can see him developing and changing and becoming who he eventually becomes, which is one of the best pen and ink artists that ever made a comic. It's just really fantastic stuff. And of course, this lady, whoever she is. And yeah, we get Conan's signature Marvel helmet, the little horns on it. Yeah, great stuff. But yeah, his sword gets really small up there. Interesting. So anyway, this story, it's kind of a classic. What I love here, though, it's just based on a character by Robert E. Howard. So That's to let you know that this is an original tale by Roy Thomas. It is not a adaptation of anything that Robert E. Howard wrote. So this is just fresh stuff. And one thing about these reprints or this digest edition is that they basically would cut out the panels and just rearrange them so that they could be nice and big, or as big as they can be in this little format, but like they are rearranging it. But as far as storytelling goes, it still works, but it's definitely not the same. Like here, as an example for size difference. Yeah, so let's still peek into the future of this YouTube channel here. But this is like a standard comic book size. This is a digest. So much smaller, and yeah, so that's why they had to kind of cut them up and rearrange them. And then here we get our first interior look of Conan. And yeah, just some fun action here, some fun like physicality opposing, very simple costuming. You know, that becomes a little bit more elaborate as this comic goes on. But yeah, just throwing in some of that at the time Kirby era energy to the Endeavor, which that was the house style at the time basically, because it's amazing. Yeah, and I love this. There's no box here. It's just laid over the blue there, the sky. It's great. And yeah, crazy looking swords. Look at this sword. And I also love, this zoom in where we're just seeing the tops of them. There we get Conan kind of on top of things. Him coming charging. I feel like that's a pose. That's like a panel that's been kind of pulled out and used in different ways. But yeah. It's a great, I don't know, it's fun and it's exciting. And here he is, come bursting down on this shield. Some interesting, looks kind of like a Roman gladiator kind of armor there on the leg there. Yeah. This guy getting grabbed in the face. Conan just clearing house. And also look how Conan's colored different. So on these other guys, there, if we're doing the coloring guide or using the 4-color process, these guys are like an R2 Y2. So this is like the lowest red, lowest yellow setting for these kind of paler figures. And then Conan is using, I'm guessing it's Y2 but R3. So it's one up from it. So it's a little redder. And I'm guessing it's a choice made by them to designate him, to make him easy to follow in the fight. He has the helmet and he has black hair, whereas opposed to many of these others have blonde hair. So it sets him apart, but it's just one more way to designate him in all of this. And also I love how these panels need to go together because his sword overlaps it. Now I can put some images up of what these pages look like originally. But in case you don't know, so the story here is basically Conan is a mercenary that's been hired by a group of warriors to fight essentially the men of Vanaheim, which is that's a Norse thing. That's also encroaching on the Thor world, honestly. And there's basically there's a war going on between these people, and Thor's fighting on the side of this guy who's I believe his name is Olaf. And it's fascinating, and something that I'm sure there's interviews and scholarship on, especially something this kind of foundational for an entire genre of comic, the sword and sandal, sword and sorcery kind of comic. This feels, especially compared to issue 2 and issue 2 and 3 in this book, this feels rushed. Or this because it's again Barry Smith is a great artist, but it just feels like this is something that it needed to get done, needed to get out, And, you know, I feel like he just didn't have as much time, or somebody along the process didn't have as much time as they could have wanted. Because, yeah, we have Dan Adkins and Dan Adkins inking here. And I just, yeah, get the feeling, because, like, I don't know, his hair kind of looks weird here and there. I just feel like there's a rushed kind of, you have to just keep it simple and just get moving with it, which I just, yeah, it still works, still looks good, but it is just a yeah, it's distinctive. And also, yeah, they're first through the border towns of Asgard. So yeah, so Asgard and Vanaheim, it's all very Norse. But I'm guessing, yeah, it's just easy to grab from those because it just feels kind of old timey, ancient, and you don't have to make up your own words. So, you know, Roy Thomas just being efficient here with telling the story. And heck, this might have just been a proof of concept, like, to prove, because I know that it was kind of a, you know, Roy Thomas came to Marvel and he's like, hey, I got a new idea for a thing that we should adapt or make comics of. And I feel like I think I've heard that there was some resistance at first. And this may have just been like a quick proof of concept that he worked up with Barry Smith. And they're like, you know what, this is good. Let's publish it and see how it goes, you know, and it's good enough to publish. So at least, yeah, I don't know. I'm making wild assumptions. And also it looks like Wolf here, who's basically has my name except with a V, looks like he's naked here, which, you know what? I kind of wish he was, because that would be fucking awesome. He's just like this naked dude with like a wolf pelt and a sword. It's great stuff. But also, I don't know what's happening behind this guy, because like this looks all complete, but I don't know. Like he's got a head, and then his waist is is like right here. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not trying to pick apart this, but anyway, they want to defeat this other army, but they, you know, they don't have an edge, and then they find this tunnel with all these weird symbols around it, and they come across this guy, and I love all this cosmic shit, this crackle. Love the interesting kind of dark lighting here of this panel. It's ominous, and yeah, we have this kind of spiritualist looking figure, and, you know, another Marvel redhead right here. He's a shaman. And then I love that even in this like fantastical world, we still have like a star jewel that fell from the sky. Like so it's still sci-fi. So, you know, we got an alien stone that's giving him powers, and basically he's going to help them if they lure Conan here. He can use it to help defeat them all, but they need Conan for whatever reason, and we don't know yet. And yeah, just some fun. Like, I love the angle on this one, and I love his like interesting kind of get up here, and yeah, and also a cool angle with the star jewel or whatever in the foreground. Yeah, we gotta name drop things like Atlantis and such. And yeah, then later on, here we go back here. They're continuing the fight. Yeah, they're the Aesir, which is again another Norse thing. That's who Conan's fighting with. But then, yeah, then we get what the shaman has summoned for them. Look at that green sky. What a cool choice. This bright green there. And they're these like bird people, demon bird people. So there we go. Some nice, fun fantasy stuff. Yeah, and it's a simple enough design, but it's also like, you know, before it was just dudes with swords fighting dudes with swords, and now you've got this crazy fantasy element, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it good material, I think, for a comic. There we go. A little bit more expression here we get from Barry Smith. Yeah, and yeah, good action here. Like I love this. Yeah, the inertia in this panel. This is great. And yeah, and this aerial battle right here happening. I do love though that Barry Smith was like, "Listen, you're gonna get a winged creature, but I am not gonna draw like feathers or like bat like articulation. They're gonna be kind of these like aluminum foil strips just flapping there. Like, okay, that's fine." Yeah, and a bony hand against which, yeah. So like, Conan basically gets his clock clean, and again, this is the first issue. And then later on, he wakes up, and he has this lady around him with all this weird shit on her head. Yeah. Interesting hatching. Look at that. Yeah. And again, love the coloring. Yeah, look at this panel with all the layering. You got the creatures, Wolf and his buddy, the shaman, the lady, and Conan, all in one panel. So here, yeah, we have he's telling of the world that was and what is to come, and what I like here is they name drop of a King Kull here, wearing a wild outfit, but yeah, just Roy Thomas making allusions to other Robert E. Howard stuff. It's fun. And then the Great Deluge. And then, yeah, the birth of Conan here. Which I think is cool. It's just to cover up everything. And then, yeah, to get into it, then he talks about how he fights. And a lot of this is based on, like, the books about Conan. And then later on, he becomes a king. And he's like, but wait, that's the future. And Conan's like, what the fuck? And then he like jumps way far ahead and goes into space, and like, yeah, so like he sees in the far future and it drives him crazy. Cool spaceship too. And then Conan breaks free, and he smashes the star gem, and like just this big cataclysm. That's a cool panel. And they're running away. Get some crackle more. And then this guy's just freaking out. Conan's escaping the destruction. And the trick is, so basically the shaman was getting his power from another dimension, and that's where those creatures came from. And he wanted Conan to basically be like a sacrifice. And the idea was he was going to send Conan into the other universe so that she could stay here, like in this one as she is, but instead she becomes one of those winged creatures reverts back and has to go back to that universe. So basically he summoned her, but then she couldn't stay unless somebody else went in her place, and they were going to use Conan because he's strong. He was a strong enough person to be the replacement. There we go. Great close up here, Conan. And then yeah, he goes off to fight more. There we go. More direct references there. But yeah. So that was the first issue of Conan, and then we get more fun here. And then already in this next issue, we get a little bit, like the art gets more elaborate. And I feel like it's because Barry Smith gets a little bit more time. And he's fighting these beastmen. And he's like, it's like a gladiatorial battle, and he's fighting these snow lions. Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. And then here, it even gets even better. Here he's meeting the Valkyries and stuff. So that's one thing that I find interesting, is that Conan starts off with more of a connection to like Norse mythology, and it seems like it's kind of riffing on, yeah, like Norse myths or Northern European stuff, and isn't as much influenced by the kind of unique world that is crafted by Robert E. Howard. And it's I feel like, it's in starting off, it's just like, let's just tell marketable stories and, yeah, just get into it. But then once they start adapting it, then we get kind of the signature looks and feels of Conan. So anyway, that is where Conan began. So, like, is it something that I feel like everybody who's a fan of Conan should check out? I mean, yes, and also I feel like it really comes down to, is this your cup of tea? It's my cup of tea, of course, so, which is why, I'm talking about it, because I try not to talk about things I don't like. But also, it's just cool to see like where it began, how it began, and it's kind of, it starts humble beginnings, but still showed a lot of promise, which is why it continued on and on and on. But I feel like for some people, it's the writing style is a little antiquated as far as like the how extensive some of these captions are, and oftentimes it's just telling you exactly what's happening, or rather filling in for a lot more action that can't be shown because you only have so many pages to work with in between ads at the time of the publication of this book, or the I guess I should say the issues. But anyway, I would say that it's just it showed great promise from the beginning, and I think that it's the reason why we're still devouring new Conan stories to this day, because I think it's a strong character to base a serialized story on. So that is good old Conan the Barbarian #1 here in this digest format. And what's not in the digest format but is also available for you to check out is my comic Side Questers. This collects the first 8 issues, so the first volume, first complete story arc of my fantasy comic, and in here you'll find fun things, including big barbarian guys here, like He-Man or Conan himself. So it might appeal to you. So I would say, if you're interested, you can check it out on my website and get your own copy. You can also check out my Haxan short story anthologies, which take place in the same universe as Side Questers and deal with magic users of all types, and they're kind of dark stories. You can buy all these on my website. And if you're like me and you like the 4-color the 4-color process for coloring comics, check out my webcomic 3-panel Origin. These are the print versions of the first 3 years, and basically tell the origin of a character in 3 panels, and they're usually kind of awkward and silly. So it's kind of like The Tick or something like that. And this is short stories connected to that universe, and you can buy them both on my website, and you can check out 3-panel Origin every Thursday on my Instagram page. So, all that said, long live Conan.